Welcome, friends. This is Greg from Coachwell. Today we have a special guest. I'll introduce you to you in a moment. I want to introduce my co-host, Dave. Dave Salciccioli is our CDO, our Chief Development Officer. And let me go ahead and introduce Brad. Brad Root is the owner of GM Nameplate. And, Brad is one of the owners of GM Nameplate. He's also the president of the Washington division. Brad, is that right?
That's correct, yep.
And you're also the founder of Meta Monitor, which we'll let you talk about in just a moment. You're married to your sweetheart, Nancy. You have 3 children. And today, we're going to talk about this pivoting process in businesses. We get the privilege to work with a lot of businesses. In fact, all of our clients right now are all pivoting in some way. And so Brad's going to share his story with us today. And Brad, we're so glad to have you with us. So thanks for being a part of this time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So as we open up, here we are in a national crisis. We're beginning to exit this national crisis, hopefully. We don't have that officially done yet. But, we have a pandemic, we have an economic meltdown worldwide. And, GM Nameplate has 3 sites in the U.S., two in Asia. Is that right, Brad?
4 in the U.S., 1 in Singapore, and a couple in China.
Okay. So it's a large manufacturing, and you guys have got to remain open, right? I mean, the key is, like all manufacturing, to shut down for a long period of time can be devastating to your business. So as we talk about this today, take us back to COVID-19 in Seattle when it first struck Seattle. What was it like there as we open up in this story today?
Yeah, Seattle, COVID, a lot of uncertainty, obviously, a lot of concern. The city is a very busy, vibrant place. And next thing we know, it's basically a ghost town. It's a little bit eerie, actually. I mean, I have a 45-minute commute to work normally. Well, that changed within a day to a 25-minute commute. Just a different world. We didn't know what to think, what to believe. There was so many rumors going on out there in the world. Our employees were concerned. I was concerned. I didn't know what the impact was going to be to our business. Were we going to be able to continue to operate? We had no idea. We felt pretty good because we knew we were pretty essential in the products that we do, medical devices in particular. So we were hoping we were going to be able to continue to operate. And fortunately, that proved to be the case, but it was really challenging to get employees comfortable enough to come to work.
So when you were coming to work yourself and your workers are coming to work, were they afraid, literally? I mean, were they afraid to actually be there?
Yeah, because there's so much information out there. One of the things I was trying to encourage my employees said, look, guys, get your information from reliable sources. Getting it from your friends, brothers, barbers, cousins, uncles, something or other doesn't know how it work right now. There's too much going on. Social media, be really careful. Go to the CDC for your information. Really try to get a credible source of information. And I've told them, it's okay to be concerned because we don't exactly know what's going on. But the other thing is we're going to make sure that we have an incredibly safe work environment. So very early on, we cut down things like meetings, any sort of person-to-person meetings. We changed to Skype meetings. We had people ensure that they had their temperatures checked every day, sanitizers everywhere. We did masks and face shields, and just a lot of general social distancing. We told our office staff, you can work remotely. So we jumped on it really quickly to make sure that we were being as safe as we possibly could. And then we just told them, look, we're going to keep you informed. As we know things, you're going to know things. And it's just one of those things where you just got to really communicate.
So I love that. So Seattle shut down. You guys are putting a lot of good practices into play immediately. But how did you remain essential? How did you stay essential during this time? Because that was the big thing, right? If you were not essential, you could not stay open. So how did you do that? How did you ensure that you had that permission to actually keep operating?
Yeah, it was relatively loose in Seattle, I would say. We created letters. We did have a contact. I think our HR group contacted the state and just said, hey, we're a manufacturer of medical device product, defense product, and we plan on remaining open. And it was pretty straightforward. There was not a lot that had to do with it. We gave letters to employees to keep in their cars. So when they were coming to work or going home from work, and if they were to get detained or pulled over for whatever reason, they could show that they worked for an essential business. But fortunately, there was not a lot that we had to jump through to prove it. The state was pretty accommodating.
Okay. So what made you come up with an idea to do a different product? I mean, tell us that you created a brand new product right in the middle of this. You pivoted the business and put a lot of attention on this. What was the genesis of that idea? When did it strike you? What brought
Yeah.
that about?
So we, again, doing medical device product here, components for other people's products, trying to, really see what's going on out there in the world and what are the greatest needs through this pandemic. And one of the articles I came across was that frontline healthcare workers were making their own PPE. And in particular, they're making face shields. And so I looked at that and I said, wow, they're making their own face shields out of whatever they could cobble together. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And I just, looking at our capabilities, our equipment, our supplies, and I said, geez, we could be making those. So I looked into, what the requirements were, from an FDA standpoint, so on and so forth, and found out that, right now it was kind of considered, wartime, if you will. And so you could, as long as you had general, strong operating systems and quality management system, you could be creating these. And so I looked at, what the frontline healthcare workers were cobbling together, and I said, oh my gosh, we could be making, professional grade ones immediately. So went from basically concept to prototype to production within a matter of about 4 days.
4 days.
4 days.
Have you ever done a pivot like that before?
That was pretty fast. Sometimes sometimes it's amazing what we can get done during a crisis, right? All the red tape, all the bureaucracy of certain things was just kind of out the window. We knew we needed to get product out there, to the frontline healthcare workers. That was the most critical. It didn't have to be the most, beautiful product. It didn't have to be the fanciest product, but it had to be something that would work and something that we could manufacture and scale on immediately. And that's exactly what we did. Fortunately, we have really strong relationships with in our local community, and especially within kind of the healthcare system. Swedish Hospital has been a great partner with GM Nameplate, GMN, for many years. We've always supported their cause and their foundation. So I was able to collaborate with them on taking this concept and getting their feedback and ultimately creating a product. And they were the first people that we brought product to. They were great partners in this. They helped us, kind of, qualify what was the best product and what was easiest to use, what was the right size, what was most comfortable, so on and so forth. So they were really key to being able to allow us to get something going really fast.
And I think you have a sample you want to show us, right?
Yeah. So again, this is a really straightforward, product, and it's a face shield. I mean, it is a basically a 7 mil polyester film. We tried thicker, we tried thinner, and based on their feedback of Swedish folks, this is what they liked. We did different sizes. I mean, it's really basic. I mean, it's a face shield. It's got a foam that we apply for the forehead rest and to keep it away from the face for glasses. And then it's got an elastic tie, and that's it. But this little product here, I mean, it's nothing, one of the things with the COVID is kind of droplets. Yeah. And this protects, obviously, droplets both ways. Right. A lot of times healthcare workers, of course, use this in conjunction with their face masks. Oh my God. This gives them ultimate protection.
Right.
Again, very simple product, but it was something that is incredibly effective and something we were able to build and scale on just basically immediately. Biggest trick was finding enough supply of the polyesters and the elastics that go into the product. But yeah.
So
Yeah,
you pivoted, created this product, and yeah, go ahead, Dave, and let's talk about the results for a little bit. I mean, it's been amazing to hear these results. Go ahead, Dave.
yeah. I mean, it's a fascinating story, and the product is looks great. And I'm so happy you're able to provide that for the medical community. One of the questions that often comes up when we're talking with businesses who are in a pivot is like, it's amazing that you were able to do that in 4 days. And so I'm just curious, like, once you guys had the idea, how did you take that idea to your leadership team? Did you take it to the floor? How did you garner buy-in to make this really, really fast pivot? And so sort of like what happened within those 4 days to be able to get to the point where now we can talk about the result and the production that happened afterwards?
Yeah. Well, I personally have a very strong entrepreneurial spirit. Working on things like this is a lot of fun for me. So I get pretty energized and jazzed when I can find a quick solution to get out and help people with. So this was something that I kind of cradled as my own baby, if you will. I just kind of drove it through. I collaborated with the people internally that could make it happen. So my design engineering manager, I come up with a really crude concept, give it to him so he can make a much more elegant part than I could with, the crude concept. But so I just said, hey, priority, please, let's work on this. And he's like, absolutely. And, he was able to work then with his team to try some different things and create it. And then, same thing with our manufacturing group. I was just able to say, look, guys, this is going to be a huge priority. Same thing with our procurement team. Big priority, guys. You know what this is for. The uncertainty and what we're selling right now is something that's simple, but we're selling speed, really. And when I say selling, I mean we're delivering. Our deliverable is speed, getting something out there really quickly. If we don't do it right now, we will not be able to help. So it's a right now sort of thing. And our team just responds. I mean, it's amazing, the sense of community that our people have. They are wonderful and love to be able to be involved with a cause like this. So it was just, I got excited about it, got them excited about it. And next thing you know, we're up and going.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I just wanted to bring up that point because that exhibits a level of trust in your leadership, right? A level of trust throughout the team. And I think to be able to make a pivot like that in 4 days, that has to be a component, or else, you couldn't have sprung on it so quickly. Like you said, it was a right now thing. So it took everybody shifting priorities, trusting, moving forward together in the same direction. And so I think that's a pretty incredible point. So as we look at sort of like, you pivoted in 4 days, what have you done? And like, how long ago was that? When was the actual time that you started producing and shipping the face masks out into Swedish or other distributors?
Yeah, that was it was mid-March. So it was right around St. Patrick's Day, as I recall. But what was interesting is that, again, nobody really knew where this was going to go. And like I said, not everybody was really comfortable with coming to work. And we were accommodating people. We let folks opt out if they did not feel comfortable. But what was interesting was to see how many people that were kind of on the fence of opting out decided not to opt out when they found out that we were building face shields for the frontline healthcare workers. When they found out that that's something that we were doing, they wanted to stay involved. People canceled vacations, people that weren't real comfortable all of a sudden decided, look, the company's doing everything they can to protect us. So we're comfortable, we're excited, we want to help as well. So, fortunately, the folks, really got engaged in this. The other thing that was interesting, kind of by the grace of God in all this, is that aerospace sector is a large part of our business. But the aerospace industry has been, hit pretty hard through this pandemic. And we were able to redeploy a lot of resources. People that traditionally have worked in aerospace, we were able to redeploy and get them going on our medical device and going on face shields. Our medical device customers, they were trying to pull in everything they could, and their volumes were doubling and tripling, and they had to have everything right away. So again, we were pretty fortunate that we could redeploy resources. Now, we still did lose probably about a third of our workforce who just opted out and just weren't comfortable, but we put a lot of heroic efforts in, and we were able to actually accomplish quite a bit.
So Brad, just real quick, Dave, it sounds like you're doing multiple pivots. You're doing multiple pivots on other products that you had. You had to move away from aerospace, jump into more of your medical products that you guys produce. You had to, you were shifting workforce around. You were, and then you added a new product on top of this.
Right.
How many have you guys manufactured since that time?
We've manufactured about 250,000 face shields, and that's been kind of a collaboration across multiple factories within our company. So between what we do here in Washington, what we do in North Carolina, and then even what we do in our China factory, we were able to do about 250,000 of these.
And are those being distributed only in the U.S., Brad, or are they in international?
Correct. Yeah, we've so far we've only distributed across the U.S. So we focused on the U.S. market because that's where the hot spot has been. We know there's opportunity to do some things outside of U.S. as well, as this is kind of a worldwide pandemic. But this has been our focus right now. Yeah. Especially as there's so much challenge getting product out of China during this whole crisis. We knew again that we needed to build as much as we could here domestically, and yes, we did build some out of China, but it was tough to get product even shipped here from China. So we tried to really build as much as we could out of the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah. One point that you brought up, it's incredible that you're saying that people who are possibly sort of wanting to move away from, they were nervous about coming to work. You provided this product, and it seems like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it gave them a bit of a rallying cry or a bit of a larger purpose to be able to engage in. And that seemed to drive maybe, more people coming to work and being excited about the product. So, so it's really neat how you leverage that. So talk to me about, how are you selling these? How are you distributing them? And has it helped? I'm guessing there was probably some financial loss being an international manufacturing company in the middle of this. Has this helped to offset that a little bit, or how are you seeing it into the framework of GM Nameplate as a whole?
Yeah, most definitely. So we've done a combination. We've sold some product. We've donated some product. Everybody's in need. So, this is the sort of thing that is our core business, right? And so we needed to do something to make sure all of our people could keep working as much as they possibly could. We need to do things to try to cover our costs. So we definitely sold some product, but we also donated some product. What people don't always realize is that you think in a situation like this where the healthcare system is under tremendous stress, you think, well, look at all that volume, they must be doing quite well. Well, no, that's not the case. Hospitals really have struggled through this because elective surgeries and procedures and whatnot is what really gives them their income. So they haven't had a ton of income right now. It's our livelihood too, though. So we've tried to balance all those things out. We've donated product, and we've also sold product. It doesn't do us any good to not be able to pay for our workforce either. So keeping people working. Biggest thing is also being able to protect those frontline workers, and also donating some where we could, and then also selling some. So we've sold direct to hospitals, some to distributors, and just kind of a hybrid of approaches there.
Hey, Brad, if I remember correctly, this product's only about $5, isn't it? If I remember that.
Yeah, it's sold for under $5, so it's not like it's a really, really expensive product.
For you guys to do that and cover your manufacturing costs and offer that at such a reasonable price was really a gift to people in many ways, right?
That's right. Yeah, we were able to do it quickly. And the other thing too is that this is made in the USA. So, and there was just not the supply chain as there normally was, because there was such a shortage. And so anyway, again, we were able to solve a problem pretty quickly by responding, being a U.S. manufacturer that could actually build these today.
Yeah. So are you planning to continue to produce these for as long as this crisis goes on? Do you see this being maybe an aspect of your core business, long term moving forward, now that you sort of rallied around creating this and maybe other PPE devices? How do you see it
Yeah.
sort of continuing to be a part of what GM Nameplate does?
Yeah, we will certainly provide product as long as there's a need for the product. I think the market got a bit saturated, so I think right now the market here in the U.S. has got enough supply per se. That's within probably the frontline healthcare, workers and system. However, as our world has changed, the next group that we have to get out there and protect are those people that are going back to work. The restaurants and other manufacturing companies and just other organizations in general. They need to be able to protect themselves as well. And in some cases, it's a government requirement, that you have some sort of face mask or face shield. And, also people are not comfortable going back to work necessarily without some protection. So really what we're trying to do now is saying, okay, well, how can we help, this next wave of people that need some personal protective equipment? I think the other thing that we learned out of this was it's pretty important that we are manufacturers in the U.S. of things like medical devices, medical products, pharmaceuticals. I do believe that we're going to have a reshoring of those sorts of things. We shouldn't be dependent on anybody really, for those basic type of needs within that our country has. And so I think it's pretty important that we continue to be able to provide those ourselves. I know people have, looked at over the last 30 years, really looked at these low wage labor countries to get, really inexpensive product. But again, there's some things that are really critical and pretty important. So we do believe there's going to be a reshoring and a need to reshore, these types of products here in the U.S. So we're looking at, the face shields. We're looking at the N95 masks, as are a lot of other people. But we've got, the strength of us here in the U.S. is that we're a manufacturer who's registered with the FDA because of all the product that we do. We know what we build is going to be right for the FDA requirements, so on and so forth. And we believe that there's going to be a reshoring of this type of thing in the U.S.
So what I hear you saying, Brad, is there's possibly, maybe even another ancillary pivot towards a civilian application, in a much broader sense to be able to protect workers as they start to go back. Dentistry and elective surgery is coming back in many states in this month. So so you're kind of looking at some of those opportunities and ways that you can help and support in those ways.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So lots of different places we can go. Then again, as long as there's a need for the product, we want to keep providing that product.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Brad, as you
go ahead, Greg. No, go ahead.
Brad, as many business owners will be watching this program, and I think it's critical for them to hear from you. Some encouragement right now. Many of them are struggling. Many of them are looking for innovative ideas. This will be very encouraging for them to hear today. What advice would you give them to consider as they pivot for their own company, for their own service? What do you recommend that they do mentally, emotionally, maybe even practically with their team? How do you, I guess, start and lead a good pivot? How do you do that?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. That's not an easy one to answer, but what I'd say is that, it doesn't start just in a day. I think the big thing is that over time, you've got to be, building relationships and cultures within your organizations that's full of trust, entrepreneurial spirit, and, just a culture that'll allow you to try different things. Again, we still don't have, all the answers as to what this will look like in, even, 3 months, 6 months, or a year from now. But I think what, I encourage people is to be, creative. Certainly look at all aspects of your business. Every business is different, and it's been pretty interesting right now. People have said, wow, we're envious of you as a manufacturer. You don't hear that very often because it's tough being a manufacturer. It's one of those industries that are, razor thin margins. And so when you have people saying, wow, I'm envious of you. Well, I think it's a situation where, we feel good for the first time in a long time and being able to help right now. But every business has an opportunity to help. I mean, I look at the restaurants out there that, have really been hit hard. But, the way that they're, responding to things, with takeout, selling gift cards right now, and just other things. They're doing things just to kind of keep their restaurants going, keep their staff engaged. And I'd just love to see the creativity that people are putting in. I know it's tough, and I wish I had answers for everything and everyone. But I think that creativity and really having built a foundation of a culture that allows for adaptability and change. It's not something you can just do right away, but over time, as long as you have the right culture, you'd be surprised about what your people will get excited about and rally behind.
Yeah, and this won't be the first. I mean, this isn't the first crisis that's happened, and it won't be the last, right?
No, right.
And I love what you're saying in that the organizational health, building an innovative culture, building a culture of trust and accountability and results, all of those things matter, even more in the moment of like the moment we're in, and in the moment of trying to pivot quickly, whether it's a defensive pivot like some people have had to make right now, where, man, this situation's been thrust upon me, and what are we going to do to just survive, right? Or maybe a little bit in your situation, which is a little bit of both. It's sort of an offensive pivot. All right, well, how can we actually get ahead of this, and not only in our practices in the business, but also what kind of products or services can we change or adapt so that we can meet the needs of the larger community that's out there. So I love hearing that the culture matters, right? Is what I'm hearing you say. The culture matters, and you can't do that overnight, but it really matters in these moments.
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, I've been involved with our company for, I guess I'm going on 26 years now in a professional capacity. So I've gone through a few cycles. I went through 9/11, and then I went through 2008, and then of course we're going through now. And some of those times have been tougher than other times, but I'll say that 2008 for us, 2008 and 9 was probably the darkest period in our business, because that was just decimated us, and that was really painful. But I will say that I think that helped going into this. Just that experience of going through and surviving 2008, 2009 actually helped going through this. We probably laid off about 40% of our workforce during that 2008, 2009 period. That was a really dark day for our company. And so going into this pandemic, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, this could be the same kind of thing. I may have to do that again. But after 2008, 2009, when we had to go through that, we came out of that so much stronger. And we basically went and over the next year and a half, added back to where we were, plus about another 30%. And so I was like, okay, that was a really painful period, but we sprung out of that pretty fast and hard. And wow, we actually came out of it stronger. So I kept that in my mind this whole time. I said, this may be really painful. It's turned out not to be as painful for us, fortunately. But I also said, look, coming out of this, if it is painful, I do believe in our company, and we're going to come out of this stronger.
So Brad, back to that 2008, 2009, was it again culture was critical in that time?
Yeah, that without a doubt. I think that, again, we had to cut about 40% of our workforce. And that was hard because, again, you get a culture that, you try to run things like a big family. And when you have to make those sorts of decisions, that is really painful. But it was like I told people at the time, it's like, I don't like this at all, but if we don't do this, we're going to cut 100% of our workforce. We're not going to have a business. We're not going to have a company. So people understood that. And people are also, we were able to bring folks back when our business did come back. I mean, it was awful. So I feel for the people that are having to go through that right now, but I would just say that, in our experience, we came back a lot stronger coming up.
Do you know what specifically, could you remember back? I know it was a long time I was trying to think back the other day as I was walking through this crisis myself. What did I do back then? Can you remember some of the specific things you did that helped you guys come out of that challenge as well?
We responded appropriately along the way, because again, we didn't know where the bottom was in that, and we would adjust as best we could based on the information that we had, and then we would adjust again. We communicated a lot. I mean, that was the big thing. We really communicated. We made sure we were, really strong in our relationships, stayed very close to our customers, um, close to our bank, and really close to our employees.
Right.
We try to make sure that we're all, getting the best information real time as we could. Yeah. And being open and honest, that's huge. I wouldn't one day, for instance, say, okay, we're all good guys. This end is here. We're all stabilized. I never said that. I would be honest and say, guys, I don't know. And we're doing the best we can today. And we'll hopefully, be able to continue on this path. But trying to be honest, optimistic, but honest. You got to be honest with folks.
Optimistic, but honest. That's a good phrase, huh, Dave? I like that one.
Yeah, and you're expressing in both the 2008 crisis and the one now that effective leadership matters, right? It makes a difference to be able to successfully make a pivot, to sustain a pivot, to rally people around that pivot, whatever it is. Whether it's, again, hey, we have to lay off 40%. That's a pretty rough conversation, like you're saying. And luckily, that hasn't been the case for you at the moment. But lots of conversation like that. But your leadership and effective leadership in that way is making and seems to be making a huge difference there. So I'm so happy that you're leading the pivot. You're leading your people effectively in that way.
Yeah, well, I'm also fortunate that I have a lot of leaders within as well. I mean, nobody does anything on their own, right? And so again, it's just having people that you surround yourself with that have to share that same passion. And they bring things that I can't bring, to the table. Wonderful, smart, driven people who just, we have each other's backs, right? Yes, I'm a leader, and so are, many of my people within the organization. So, collectively, we are able to do amazing things, but there's a lot of good leaders, and there are also a lot of followers in the organization that are, really buying in and supporting what the leaders are doing.
So Brad and Dave, what I'm hearing is culture is very critical, and you can't address a crisis and then build you've got to have that culture. As what you're saying is you've got to be nurturing that all the time. Yeah. So maybe for a lot of people today that are listening to this, maybe your pivot starts with enriching your culture. Maybe you have to stop before you do creative solutions and address challenges within your own culture. Because what I'm hearing you say is honesty, good communication, optimism, but stark honesty, all those things, all the culture, trust, all those elements have to be existing for you to be able to build on, and especially to pivot successfully. So maybe for a lot of leaders today, we might have to look at your culture first. Now, that might be the place to start before we move through a pivot. And why use this crisis in that way? Wouldn't you say, Brad, we're in this crisis, so why not utilize that crisis to address challenges within your organization, within your leadership teams, within relationships? Would you say that's a good place to start at this point?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, again, I think, what we learned out of 2008, 2009 is you can come out of things a lot stronger. They're not fun. They're miserable to go through. However, I mean, you're going to go through it regardless. So, learn something out of it. Try to come out of it a lot stronger if you possibly can. I think it's a great opportunity as a leader to kind of shine. You got to be really strong. One of the things that, we've done is we've worn a lot of hats, right? I've personally built well over 1,000 face shields, helping do whatever you can, really being a, servant leader, if you will, where you're willing to work in you're really being part of it. You're a leader within your business, but you're also one of the workers. You got to be able to say that, yes, I'm, not asking anybody to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And here I am right here with you. And I can tell you, people absolutely love that. They love it when you are working elbow to elbow with them.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I bet it was really fun. So servant leadership, communication, culture. Dave, what else are you hearing from Brad today?
Yeah, he talked about, trust existing there. And I think a culture of innovation, right? Not a, hey, we have all the ideas here up at the senior level. No, it seems like
No.
you have a culture of innovation where it's like, if you have an idea for how this could be done more effectively or how we can do this
Absolutely.
better. And so developing that culture of creativity, I think is the word that you used, Brad, and innovation is critical. And like you're saying, Greg, that has to be there previous to a crisis, right? That needs to be there all the time. You can't have a culture where you've stifled creativity and all of a sudden in the middle of a crisis say, hey guys, come up with some creative ideas to help our business thrive in the midst of this.
Yeah.
It can't happen that way, right? So
that's right. It's funny when I was working on building some of these face shields, which I really enjoyed doing because it's very different than my normal day. But anyway, I was doing something, I was moving a box or something, and one of my employees said to me, excuse me, Mr. Root, when you move that box, you put on gloves. And I was like, okay, you are absolutely right.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, that's it, But what I had told people, I said, in a situation like this, there's no, and in general with our company, I've always said, there's no hierarchy here. It's, we're all in this together, and, we're all working towards the same thing. We all have different jobs, but, when it comes to this sort of thing, yeah, you can call me out on things. Absolutely. And it's fun when you have an assembly worker that's, teaching me how to do things. And I'm like, absolutely. Thank you very much. You're absolutely right. So,
yeah, that's fantastic. So I guess the last question before we close, Brad, is, what are the ways in which you think GM Nameplate as a whole, and maybe specifically your work site, is going to emerge stronger out of this? What are some of the characteristics or new habits or practices or relationships? What do you think it's going to look like? And we've been talking in the business, it's not going to be what the new normal is. It's what the next normal is, right? There's no going back to a time previous to this global crisis, right? In the same way that previous to 2008 and 9/11, right? The world was different, fundamentally different in many different ways. Think about TSA after 9/11, right? And so there are going to be some fundamental differences in the way that our world functions. But how do you see, what do you think that next normal looks like for GM Nameplate? And what are some of the characteristics that that you think are going to help you emerge stronger at the end of this?
Yeah, I think, one of the big things, again, the way that we were able to rally around a cause, for instance, face shields and medical product, and how committed and passionate we were and how much fun we really had. I hate to say fun during a pandemic, but as an organization, we felt good about what we were doing. We felt really good. The employees were amazing. They wanted to be part of the solution. And they also recognized that we were providing a very, very safe place for them to come every day. We took and still take the safety of the employees very seriously, and we continue to do that. We did a complete deep clean within our entire facility, temperature checks, personal protective equipment, washing, all those things. They saw how much we cared and how important it was for them to feel safe. We've told them and shown them that it's a lot safer to come here than it is to go to the grocery store or the drugstore or anywhere else. So I think that they've really seen how much we care. And providing a product like this, they also saw that, wow, we really cared about, the community and helping be part of the solution, to helping to somewhat, slow this pandemic or ease this pandemic. So I think, it's a deepening of a relationship as we've gone through this. Again, in general terms, I also think that we're going to have an onshoring or reshoring, I should say, of certain products. So I think that that's going to be a great opportunity for our company to really continue to build more of this medical type of product here in the U.S.
Yeah. So Brad, as we do close, I want to say that the entrepreneurial expression, it sounds like from you, because that is who you are, is also an important element to bring to our companies, to our organizations. Yeah. Would you agree? We've got to be looking out.
Yeah.
What is this crisis birthing in opportunity, right? Would you say
Right.
that that's important, or we're always looking for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the entrepreneurial spirit with any leader is really, really important. Being opportunistic. Um, and I think for me, it's the nature of our business has been custom manufacturing, components for other people's products. So we're always having to be creative because we look at so many different things. But I think in general, stepping outside of what we do. I remember I created this Metamonder level product, and our board said to me, "Well, we don't build that sort of thing." And I said, "Sure we do. Why not? Of course we do. We build whatever." We can do it. Just because we haven't doesn't mean we can't. I mean,
Yeah.
let's look and get creative, about where we go from here, because it's not about where you are, it's about where you're going.
Yes.
And so I think that's big part of this. People can be a little bit opportunistic during this to figure out how can we come out of this stronger.
Well, Brad, Dave, and Brad, I appreciate you sharing your story today with us, the principles that, I appreciate your character. It's been an honor to be your coach. You realize that we've been in coaching now for over 7 years. So,
Wow.
yeah, so it's just been an honor to be in this journey with you, to see all the things that you create and the companies that you birth. And it's just fun to see that and how you help lead GM Nameplate so effectively. I appreciate your character. Dave and I both appreciate you as a person. We're also friends with you as well, and we've been able to be in mastermind groups together, and
Yeah.
also just to see how you're leading in this time and helping first responders, having a heart for that. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being a standout leader, Brad.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for your coaching. Obviously, it's had an impact. So well done there.
Yeah, it's actually been a lot of fun. I look forward to our Friday coaching sessions. It's really a lot of fun.
As do I. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. And Dave, thank you for being a part of this today and helping host this with us today. And so all of the business leaders that are out there, we wish you the best as you begin to have your pivot, as you begin to pull out of this and begin to look how you can accelerate out of this pivot. We also wish you the best as well. So thanks everyone. I appreciate the time. And